That's why they will celebrate prisoners passing. So today
What's
in
wrong
South
with
Africa,
that? Prisoners passing. What's wrong with prisoners passing? I think that's something you should celebrate. You're in prison, you get access, you're meant to be rehabilitated.
In the meantime, you're spending money on prisoners. You're spending 3 times money that you're spending on a prisoner in this country than actually spending money on an ECD center for it. Communism is a beautiful system on paper, but put it in practice. You'll see how.
It sounds like you've got this strong allegiance to business and big business at the expense of, in this context, in this conversation, in this part of the conversation, at the expense of an organized group of people that would say they represent a part of society which is educated, right? Let's double click on some of your policies. I want to talk a bit about BBBE affirmative action, because you've outrightly said on your website you are anti-BEE, you are anti-affirmative action. But maybe let's take a step back. I mean, you've run a business. You're not actively involved in your business currently, right?
No. I'm 100% in politics.
Is it? So there's a new CEO. How big is your company in terms of staff complement and all of that?
I run private businesses run by my wife.
Oh. It's... my name is Lupumlo Joka, and today we're joined by a very, very, very special guest, the President of Action SA. Mr. President, thank you for sitting down with us. It's a huge pleasure and an honor to be in your presence. You spent the last 3 days in the Eastern Cape. I saw your shoes now, and that was an indication that you are in the rural bundus. How are you feeling? Are you in high spirits? What's your sense of the Eastern Cape?
Well, thank you so much for this great opportunity. Exhausted, mixed emotions, had an excellent tour, really very highly successful, but at the same time quite depressing. If you look at the infrastructure being destroyed in this country, visiting schools and communities, it's actually quite sad, because, I used to travel the length and breadth of the Eastern Cape in the past. I'm sure you remember I started a company called Black Duck Media.
Yes.
In 1985, and my first big order was from a guy called Andy Lechamele from Danzani, East London.
Wow.
Yeah, 10,000 rands was like, my goodness.
What, did he own a mall or shop?
No, Jamele at that time, when we met him, we contacted us. We discovered he was at the time running Eshabin, but he obviously saw an opportunity to be a distributor for hair care products, and contacted us in Johannesburg, and we gave him the details. We said we invited him because we realized he wanted to give us a big order. And, just a few months after we'd started, in order to receive such a big order before what he was suggesting, we said, who the hell is this guy? So we said, no, can we fly you to Joburg? We have the discussion. We flew him to Joburg. He worked out the order. But then, those days, railways still worked. We could send the stuff by railways, but we said to him, we can work out the order, ship it out, but you've got to pay us first. But then, for some reason, he also didn't trust us. He says, no, I can't give you the money, So we ended up with a very strategic arrangement where we arranged 3 vans. We drove the 3 partners, Joseph, Johan and I. We drove in 3 vans, left Joburg on Sunday night. Monday morning we met at 6 o'clock. We met him in King Williamstown. Before dropping the stock in Danzani, we went to the bank, Standard Bank in East London, deposited the cash. It's only then we went to Danzani to assist him.
Oh, that's nice.
But then we had made arrangements with him that Joseph and I will spend a week to assist him to sell the stock. And the plan was to actually drive back to Joburg on Saturday.
So he just wanted to be a reseller, basically.
Yeah, no. Yes, a distributor for us for the
Yeah,
Eastern
yeah,
Cape.
okay.
And interestingly, by Wednesday night, my wife phoned us to say, guys, we're in trouble. There's just, we need more stock. And at the same time, I mean, and can you guys come and help with production? And then on the other hand, we had already sold the Andile stock. That stock that he had, we had already sold.
What,
So
in how long?
actually,
In 3 weeks?
Yeah, in 2 days. No,
In
3
2 days?
In 3 days, yeah.
Wow.
In 3
How
days.
many units were that? Do you still remember?
Well, the stock that went into 3-ton buckets.
Wow, that's a lot.
So yeah, we sold it in 3 days. We ended up actually, instead of flying back driving back to Joburg, because there was an emergency and the stock was sold, we flew back to Joburg and used the railways to deliver our cars.
Oh, wow, man. Are you still...
That's how the railways used to work those days.
Yeah.
This gives you an idea on how the railway used to really work.
Yeah, are you still I'm just curious, are you still in contact with him or not?
No, Andile, no. Sorry, his soul rest in peace.
Passed away.
Yeah, I passed away probably about 25 or so years ago. Yeah, because what happened is Andile wasn't a good businessman. Where do we actually met? Another interesting part about Mr. Jamel, was such a revelation for Joseph and I. We never met, we never knew black people playing rugby. This guy, we come here.
That's 1985, right?
Yeah, 1985.
Yeah.
This guy, he was called Ampur. Well known in the whole. I believe he was one of the big rugby players in the Eastern Cape. He was a very well known guy called Ampur, big guy. We were so surprised. The black people playing rugby, and it was the number one sport. It was interesting. So what I was saying is, and then obviously I think Andile with us over many years created a relationship, really became family friends, and used to travel the length and breadth of the Eastern Cape. So I used to really travel a lot with a guy here in Port Elizabeth called Sisa Ngaka. Sisa's still around. Sisa actually worked for us until I think about 3-4 years ago when he retired, when I reached I think 70 or so. But
that's amazing.
He worked for us for almost 30 years or so, something like that, but for many years.
So the Eastern Cape should be a special province for you.
Without any doubt. It's one of the provinces, from a commercial point of view, the financial independence that I enjoy today as a free man, Eastern Cape played a very, very key role. And KZN, I mean, just for many years, from the day I opened my business until I had a very serious fire on the 17th of November 1993, I had to work on all the time. I could not meet the demand. I started in a 200 square meter factory in January of 1985.
Yeah.
In a year's time, with SBDC, I don't know if you know, small business
yes.
partners, they've got all the small units all over the country.
There was something on Twitter that really came up. I think Kaya Sitole was interacting you about that interaction, something that has to do with SBD.
SBDC, they are now called business partners. They've got small units all over the country in Soweto.
Yes.
So I started my business in a rented 200 square meter factory. They had 10 units. In just over a year, I was already occupying 5 of those units. I started in one, and in a year's time, already occupying 5. But obviously, it was very difficult to operate from different factories. And then I think about just over 18 months later, then with the Botswana Development Corporation, they had big factories. I then rented a 1,500 1,000 square meter factory from Botswana Development Corporation, and then in the process, by 1990, I built my own factory in Mabopane, over 6,000 square meters.
Wow. I think in this conversation, I wanted us to talk a bit about that journey, but I know there's a book on it. You've spoken about it quite a lot. I wanted to just zoom into your key learnings in terms of your entrepreneurial journey and just in terms of money as well. That's the one part. The other part was I wanted us to chat about you as a leader in terms of leadership, because we've got a strong emphasis on this platform on leadership development, on the emerging generation. So in terms of Herman Mashaba as the leader, some of your habits, some of your routines, and some of your your thinking patterns of how you manage certain things as a leader yourself, how you run the organization, how you run your business. I also wanted us to talk about Action SA. And I was having a bit of a discussion with my brother there that organized this. Thank you, by the way, for putting this together. I was having a bit of a discussion with him just about some issues here. I've got your policy document here from September. I've got your dream document here. So I wanted to get a bit of understanding from a policy perspective of, in terms of your ideology, where Action SA is. We know some parties, we know EFF is on the left, we know some parties are on the right, we know there are some parties that call them radical, centrist, and they're in the middle. I wanted us to talk about that. But my very first question, I wanted to be on the Eastern Cape, because you've traveled now. Let's double click on what you see in the Eastern Cape. You've spent some time with Ethel Trollip. Ethel is led the DA here in the Eastern Cape for years, for decades, You've traveled, I'm sure you know the Eastern Cape very well. What do you see in the Eastern Cape? As a leader, as a politician, what do you see? And maybe another question on that, what are some solutions that are unique that Action SA can come up with to solve the unique problems that might be unique to the Eastern Cape?
Well, look, what I've observed, this is not my first visit. As I say, I know, I know this area for close to 40 years, but in the past I traveled extensively as a capitalist.
Yeah.
Selling hair care products, going from salon to salon, seeing our distributors and so forth.
Yeah.
This time, I'm now traveling as a politician, something that I never thought in my wildest dream that I would one day find myself campaigning for votes.
I was almost going to tease you and say, this time you're traveling as a socialist. I'm just teasing you.
No, not a socialist. I hate socialism. I hate communism. There's a reason why I despise communism.
Is it?
There's a reason why I'm in politics, because this government in the last 30 years, they've misled our people into this brutal system that has dismally failed all over the world, and to want to try it here in South Africa. That's why I decided to let me stand up and do something about it. And first wrote a book called Capitalist Crusader. I don't know if you've read
I've never read it.
Wrote a book called Capitalist Crusader.
So you're a hardcore capitalist?
No, hardcore.
Okay.
But at the same time, I believe in social justice. I was born in poverty. And the reason why I'm in politics, I'm using my privileged position to ensure that our people are not misled by communists, because communists are liars, are deceitful people, they're brutal. The only thing the communists have ever produced in the world is poverty.
But what about China? What about China? I mean, the EFF always speaks about China and says, no, communist China, there's a model that works there. 800 million people that have been brought out of poverty.
Tell me, would you like to live in China where the government decides for you, or you've got a one-party state? Would you want to live in that environment? I don't want to live in that kind of environment. I want to live in a country where government does not decide what time I must go to the toilet and so forth. But I want to live in a society where every 4 or 5 years we decide
the elections.
Absolutely. I don't want to live in a society where you've got a one-party state. And at what cost did China, when after the Second World War, when Mao took over and introduced communism in China? How many people did they made them before Deng came to the rescue with the passing of Mao? Otherwise, I think it's tragic what happened in China. But yes, they're doing well. I think really, I think we've got to give credit
Yeah.
to Deng, President Deng, for having tolerated what Mao did, because Mao was a terrible man, without any doubt. And yes, they've done well economically, but the Chinese people, unfortunately, they live under one party to rule. I don't want to really be in that kind of.
But
environment.
majority of people are not poor in China.
You know where they come from. My goodness, I would not really want to sell my personal liberty, my individual rights.
To have food
for
on the
anyone.
table, to live,
You
to
know.
have lights working, to have roads that work, to have infrastructure. You wouldn't want to do that.
And being controlled by someone else. My life being controlled, my political ideology being controlled by someone else. I don't want to live in a society like that. I admire a democratic. I want to live in a democratic system. I want to live in a country that values human rights. I will,
But look at what that has done in Africa. I mean, what has democracy done in Africa? If you look at all of these, I mean, look at the, in inverted commas, the supposed democracy in Zimbabwe and what's happening there.
what democracy in Zimbabwe? I think, honestly, I think let's respect ourselves and our intelligence. We can't call Zimbabwe
A democracy.
A democracy. I mean, it's a brutal,
Yeah.
authoritarian system. If we talk about real democracy, please, let's talk about
Which
real democracy here in South Africa. South Africa at the moment
It's a real democracy.
Real democracy. For
Let's
now.
use that as an example. What has that given us?
But it's under threat. Serious threat, because it is governed by a criminal organization that is actually infringing on our rights. They've captured our criminal justice system. That is why at the moment, as I'm talking to you, we're the murder capital of the world.
Yeah.
Every 11 minutes, a woman is raped in this country. And no prosecution. We've actually compromised the sovereignty of our country. We've opened our borders, making South Africa the playground of international criminal syndicates and drug cartels. So I think, but our democracy is still vibrant. That's why we can go to Makanda today with ANC trying to disrupt us. And we say, no, not in South Africa. This is not Zimbabwe. And with ZANU PF, you can stop us from campaigning. We're going to campaign. So that's really good about South Africa. Our democracy is still vibrant. But if we don't, it's under threat. If we, as South Africans, don't remove this government this year, I can tell you what they will do. Then they will interfere with our judiciary. I mean, look at this government. Most of the time, for them to do their work, civil society and political parties like us, we need to take them to court. On things that government should do without any being forced by the courts. So from that point of view, our democracy is still vibrant, but if we are not careful as South Africans, ANC is going to gradually change our constitution like how Mugabe did. And we've got to really be very careful about about this as South Africa. That's the reason why some of us have given our lives to say we're going to work hard to ensure that we remove ANC hegemony in our country and have a real vibrant economy. And what excites me about South Africa is that we've entered an era of coalition. And you'll see come elections this year, no single party is going to have outright majority.
You believe
the ANC. Or no, we don't have to have the debate. ANC is not going to have, there is no way there'll be anywhere close to 40%. So that's I think it's clear. It's clear. What we have to now consider is who will they use the palapala, the dollars to lure them to influence, to go into government with them. But they're not going to govern on their own. But we are doing everything possible. That's why we work like dogs to ensure that we can get enough votes that they, even their dollars will not really help to assist them to go and buy weak politicians who are in politics for their stomach.
What do we change in the Eastern Cape before we move on? Because I want to speak a bit about your business journey as well. But before we move on to that, what do we change in the Eastern Cape? Come 2024, let's say Ethel Chollop becomes the premier of the Eastern Cape. From a governance perspective, what would the key priorities be? Would it be the same as what you're saying in terms of your national political discourse, or do you think there'll be different key priorities that you'd want to focus on in the Eastern Cape?
Look, you see, the beauty about the constitutional framework right now in South Africa at the moment is the fact that there's provinces can influence education, can influence health, hospitals and clinics, and so forth. So I think we can do something about education. But the problem is that if we still have ANC at national government level, their policies are still going to be influenced by COSATU and the South African Communist Party. So we need to remove the ANC at the head, so that we can immediately address these draconian labor laws that are making it difficult for businesses to operate. We need to take the influence of unions in schools, and that decision can be taken at national level, because we've got to pass laws to ensure.
So you're saying do away with unions in schools?
No. In schools, not do away with them. They have the right to be there. But as Section SA, they will never have a veto right on our policies. Education, economic policies, unions, we will engage them. But they're not going to tell us how to implement our free market economy. We are not going to subject businesses to unreasonable policies that makes it difficult for them to invest in our country.
But
we are not going to allow unions to determine who becomes the principal of a school, and they don't want school inspectors. We, as Action SA, will have one Department of Education at national level. The principals of schools will not be appointed by the unions. SADTU, they will not have a say. The principals of schools are going to be appointed by us as government. We will consult the community to say, we're bringing you so-and-so as a principal. What do you think? Not the unions. The unions, let them deal with their own issues. I'm not a union, never belonged to a union. When we're in government, the government's responsibility is not only to interest groups. Government is there to look after everybody. So that is why we will not allow interest group issues to affect our policies. So no union will have a say who becomes a principal. We will bring school inspectors back, and they will go to schools to do their work, to make sure that school principals and the teachers do their work. We will not have a situation where we are forcing small businesses to pay the same salaries, subject them to the CCMAs of this world. We'll do away with all that nonsense, so that the businesses must unleash their potential to employ people, to give them the dignity. Our role as government is to ensure that obviously health and safety standards are kept, but it's not going to be our responsibility as government to say, as a business person, you must pay a person what you cannot afford. Because you come out with what you think are beautiful policies. Communism is a beautiful system on paper, but put it in practice, you'll see hell.
It sounds like you've got this strong allegiance to business and big business at the expense of, in this context, in this conversation, in this part of the conversation, at the expense of an organized group of people that would say they represent a part of society, which is educators.
But they've proven beyond any reasonable doubt. COSATU destroyed our economy. Ever since COSATU came into being a player in this country, where's our unemployment? When COSATU started having influence, what was unemployment here in this country at the time? was what? 12, 13%. We're sitting with 44%. In the last 20 years, we've got the highest sustainable unemployment rate in the world. Every time you tell people of the world, South Africa has got 44% unemployment,
They get
60% youth unemployment. People can't believe it. They think
But
you're
shouldn't-
talking, you know.
but
So
Mr. President-
why then do you think we must entertain destroying the lives of our youth? Or because businesses are not one thing that you must understand. I hope one day you'll get into business to understand. As a business,
I already have a
If
business.
you- if
I've
you're
been
a
running
bu-
a
if you-
business for
if
the
you-
past 8 years.
if you run business and you don't make money, you're gonna go out of business.
Definitely.
Business is there to run business to make money, but the beauty about the capitalist system is that when you make money, you grow. That means you've got to look for more people. And at the same time, tell me, when you employ someone, do you need Cyril Ramaphosa to tell you who you to employ?
No, definitely
or
not.
Or do you need Cyril Ramaphosa to tell you must look for good people in your business?
Definitely not.
You don't need yes. So business.
But my point, sorry for interjecting there, but my point is, I'm sure that word saying let's do away sounds like a bit harsh and strong. Like let's do away with unions.
No, I'm not
So
saying.
that-
No, I'm not saying.
like-
no. Maybe I misunderstand.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we do away with unions. We'll
But
listen
you're saying
to
you're
them.
not going to entertain them. You're not going to.
Where we don't agree with them, that they must tell us to come out with minimum wages and so forth,
Yeah.
and tell us that Section 32 of the Labor Relations Act that when you operate in a particular sector, you must pay the same salaries. You sign agreements. And everyone is bound by such arrangement. That kind of nonsense destroys the economy. So because at the end of the day, you know what? Business people vote with their own pockets. So what they do, you come out with draconian laws. What happens? Business moves somewhere else. South Africa, I mean, honestly, if you look at South Africa in a bigger international space, South Africa is such a tiny market.
Yeah.
Yes, it's important, but because it adds at the end of the day. But I don't think that investors don't have options. Investors have got options. That's why South Africa today is not an investment destination. We're losing more and more investors in this country, including South African investors not investing in this country. Now let's come to education. Look at today what's happening in our schools. We went to one of the schools in Makhado.
Yeah.
I think
I saw the pictures.
It'll break your heart. And why? It's COSATU, where you have 30% pass rate, principals are appointed by the unions, jobs are being sold. They don't want school inspectors so that they can do as they please. They are answerable to COSATU instead of being answerable to the parents. They've taken God out of our schools. We now went to school every morning before we start school from sub A until we go to assembly and ask for God's blessing. But communists, because they don't believe in God. In fact, not that they don't believe in God, they want to take God out of human beings, because communists, it's about control. It's about control. They want to control human beings. So when you have people who don't have a soul, who don't have values, you can easily control them, give them drugs, you make them dependent on 350 rands a month, to open the borders, get international drugs cartels, give them drugs, get them, they must just live and give up hope, and they lose dignity. That's what the communists want. They want to live with such people. If you look at communists all over the world, from 1917 when Lenin took over Russia, you can follow all the patterns, Mao, Cuba, everywhere. What they do, every time they take over a country, who are the first people they get rid of? Business people, educated people, clergy, and so on. communist want, they don't like clever people. And so in fact, you remember Jacob Zuma once made a mistake about his hatred of clever blacks, and you ask yourself, my goodness, I can tell you, I'm in this political game to produce clever blacks, because once we can have clever blacks, can have engineers, independent entrepreneurs, make money by being industrialists, not tenderpreneurs.
Fully agreed.
You know, we need lawyers, so we need accountants. But you can only produce that not with the kind of schooling system where you've got a 30% pass mark, you've got maths, lit, and no science. You know, so our 10-year-olds in public schools, 80% of public schools in the black communities are literally dysfunctional. That is why there were studies sometime last year where it was discovered that 80% of 10-year-olds in public schools can't read for meaning. So now
it's a big
problem. Now, who created this? Was it a mistake? Is it something that happened by mistake? No, this was deliberate. ANC, it is a plan. Why do you think they're keeping Angie Motshekga and Blade Nzimande as ministers? They're delivering these poor results, and they celebrate. That's why they will celebrate. That's why they will celebrate prisoners passing. So today,
what's wrong with that? Prisoners passing. What's wrong with prisoners passing? I think that's something you should celebrate. You're in prison, you get access, you're meant to be rehabilitated.
In the meantime, you're spending money on prisoners. You're spending 3 times money that you're spending on a prisoner in this country than actually spending money on an ECD center for a child.
That's a problem.
Sure. So what is our focus? Human rights in this country right now, they kick in when you're on the wrong side of become a rapist, become a drug dealer, become a corrupt politician, or
and the system will work for you.
Oh yeah, no. That's when so-called human rights lawyers and NGOs kick in, bring in illegal people. They say no. Sure. South Africans must have ID documents. They must have birth certificates. Leave international criminals to come into this country. We must not ask every time you want to raise this. No, they unleash insults. They call you xenophobic. They call you. And you expect us as South Africans to be pleased with this. I'm afraid that's the reason why I'm in politics. We are going to debate this. You know, I started this whole issue of illegal immigration in 2016.
I remember you were very adamant and passionate.
At the time, people were too scared. At least today, we can discuss it. Most South Africans feel comfortable. Even when the ANC reported me to the Human Rights Commission, they thought they will silence me. Fortunately enough, I'd studied our constitution. We are relating to illegal immigration. Anyone who comes into this country without the documentation, that person has broken our laws. It's a criminal.
Yeah.
I don't understand how you can tell me someone who comes into a country legally, and when I call them a criminal and you say, no, I'm feeling xenophobia. People must come here, legally,
right,
and when they're here, they must respect our laws.
100%.
We cannot allow a situation people come in here illegally, the open shops in our communities. We don't know how they bring money into our country. I'm sure they're working with, they're working in the same network as the president to bring in dollars into the country without going through the Reserve Bank. We cannot allow this because don't you think our president is in those syndicates of bringing foreign currency into our country without going through the Reserve Bank? That cannot really be allowed. Any country in the world, when you bring money into the country, it has to come through the Reserve Bank. When money leaves, it must leave through. But we have a president who is working I guess if one uses common sense and you've got to face reality, most of these businesses operating small businesses in our communities, we don't know who they are. They operate 100% with cash.
Speaking of
we don't know
spaza
how,
shops.
we don't know how they brought money.
Is that what you're speaking about? Spaza
yes,
shops.
spaza shop.
Okay.
We don't know who these people are, how they came into South Africa, what they're doing here. They open shops.
They're here to make money, to send it back to their countries.
So are you happy with that?
Not at all.
Yeah. So okay. So case closed.
on some of your policies, right? Let's double click on some of your policies. I want to talk a bit about triple BAE affirmative action, because you've outrightly said on your website you are anti-BAE, you are anti-affirmative action. But maybe let's take a step back. I mean, you've run a business. You're not actively involved in your business currently, right?
No. I'm 100% in politics.
Is it? So there's a new CEO. How big is your company in terms of staff complement and all of that?
To run private businesses run by my wife.
It's not just Black Like Me.
No. For many years, from the 80s, I've always run various businesses.
Oh, that's amazing.
Obviously, I started with Black Like Me, and through Black Like Me,
you branched into
in the 80s, branched into construction, into motor repairs, selling tires, windscreens, and so forth. So I've always had investments in other sectors. The butcheries.
Butcheries. So, okay, from a policy perspective, Mr. Mashaba, in terms of entrepreneurship, this whole discussion of entrepreneurship, business, we've got a Minister of Small Business Development. The government has spoken a lot about doing away with red tape, blah, blah, blah. Nothing has happened ever since. I think even the president even said they are appointing someone within the presidency to champion that of doing away with red tape. We haven't heard anything, since then about that. As an action,
let me tell you, when they brought that unnecessary ministry, we don't need the Minister of Small Business. I was really very vocal when they mooted the idea of bringing the Minister of Small Business. You can go into your library. I was the chairman of the Free Market Foundation.
Yes, I saw that.
And I did a lot of interviews and engagement that this government is just really wasting public monies. And I said, tell me, all these communists who've never sold a potato in their lives, do you think there must be Minister of Small Business? What do they know about small business? They've never run business. They don't know what an income statement is. They've never sold anything in their lives. And you expect them to be Minister of Small Business. We don't need that ministry is useless. One of the ministries we must kick out and use the money in the Department of Trade and Industry to take care of all the businesses.
In what sense? How does an Action SA government take care of businesses?
Within trade and industry, Minister of Trade and Industry can have units that must look after big business, look after medium-sized businesses, and professional people looking after small businesses. You don't need a ministry. You know, I used to have a friend of mine, Yuri Maltsev, his soul rest in peace, died beginning of last year. He was a professor in one of the universities in the US, and I used to meet him when I got invited on speaking engagements. Was one of the former economic advisors to Gorbachev. He defected to the US in 1989. And every time listening to Yuri Maltsev, you can listen to him on YouTube, Yuri Maltsev, a very interesting professor. You were saying that, in Russia at one stage, and the guy who took over from Lenin, all of a sudden, because they killed the farmers. Remember when they came in, the farmers, because they took their lands and put people who did not know what to do with the land. So they ran out of food. And one guy was a senior member in the Communist Party. was given a position as a minister of vegetables. No, it's not a joke. The guy went to his house and, after work. He says, "My goodness, I've been given a huge responsibility to be the minister of vegetables. Where am I going to get the vegetables?" It's like right now with the minister of electricity. I mean, where's the poor guy going to get electricity from? I mean, that department at the moment, we don't know who it's actually in charge of ESCOM. Is that Department of Enterprise or Minerals? But now they've brought in now the minister of electricity. The minister's responsibility, the minister of electricity, his job is to have press conferences every second day. To tell us about the load shedding. And he will have a press conference that load shedding is suspended at 12 o'clock. At 4 o'clock, there's a statement coming from ESCOM telling you, no, there's a stage 4 load shedding to be implemented at 6 o'clock. So, this is how communists work. Every time there's a problem, they come out with policies and add more and more bureaucracy into the mix, instead of actually facing the issue in a simple manner. If you've got problems with small business within the Department of Trade and Industry, have a team of experts that can look after big businesses. Have a team that can look as SMEs. Have a team
What's Action SA's plan, though? Is there a set sort of plans, and is there a policy stance on small business, on what Action SA will do for small businesses?
We will free them from these draconian labor laws that are making it really difficult for
in what sense?
In a sense that in the event I employ you, okay, and then 6 months down the line I can't afford you. It cannot really be that the law says I can't get hold of you. The guy can take me to the CCMA. It must be an arrangement. If I can't afford to you any longer, I've got to tell you I can afford you.
Again, that sounds like we're giving too much power to big business.
Okay.
Because how do you protect the employees in that case then? How do you protect people that will be abused?
So you want to protect the employees at the expense
how do you find the balance?
You found the balance by growing the economy. Because when you grow the economy and you educate people, the business people will always look for people. Sure. That's why developed countries, United States and all this, what are their unemployment rate? 2-3% unemployment. When they reach 5%, it's a crisis to them, because people are educated. They don't have laws that if I run a business in the United States, I can't, if in the event I encounter problems, I must be subjected to CCMAs run by COSATU. You know, today as a small business, when an employee takes you to the CCMA, you are guilty. You have to go and prove your innocence. And now, tell me, where do you get the lawyers? How are you going to afford lawyers that are going to really protect you? I'm not talking from experience of how these guys have closed one business after the other. Why do you think businesses are no longer investing in this country? Why even including South African businesses? You have big businesses mainly that are operating. All these guys running spaza shops who are in this country illegally, not employing South Africans.
Let's do away with them. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is because they don't employ the local people, they are not subjected to the draconian labor laws. So if you make labor laws flexible to allow a matriculant who's got no experience to be given an opportunity, firstly, to be able to provide for himself or herself and a family, and have a dignity of work. That's very important, because that's when you get to get the experience. Let me tell you, and I've shared this story many times all over the world in business schools. It's recorded why personally I exploited my employers. When my first job, after I abandoned my education when the university was closed in the second year.
Because of the riots, yes.
Yeah, and I decided not to go back. And at the time, my focus was to try and leave the country. And I was lucky God protected me not to get the context to leave. So I ended up worked for SPAM for 7 months. I exploited SPA. SPA paid me to get the experience because I knew, because I was never a communist, I knew the only way I'm going to survive and make a success of Herman Mashaba, it's Herman Mashaba must work for himself. And Herman Mashaba must decide his fate, not someone else.
Yep.
So when I was working for SPA, I wasn't working for SPA, I was working for myself. I wanted to get the necessary experience. I worked damn hard. I was a dispatch clerk. You know, I will do my work. As soon as I'm done with my work, I'll always go somewhere else to go and assist so that I get the experience. Never in the 7 months I was working for them once asked them for a salary raise. And 7 months later, when I gave them my resignation letter, that's when they wanted to give me more. I said, no, you are too late. If you were serious about me, it's not about you. It's, I'm moving on.
Yeah.
I worked for Motani for 23 months, and so worked there for a salary 30 months in my life. And in both cases, by the time in the 30 months, I used to gain experience, save money, got married, bought a car, and everything else is history. And I made myself independent, and the capitalist route assisted me to take personal responsibility for my life. Never relied on someone else that so and so will do it for me. I don't need government in my life to determine my life for me. I said, PW boat, you're saying as a black man I can't go into business. I'm going to go into business. And here am I now under a new democratic dispensation. I don't need ANC government to determine to my fate. I decide I'm not happy with what they're doing. I leave my business to my wife and family, and I'm saying, let me do my best to use my privileged position to save this country instead of running away.
Two more issues. Can we do 2 more issues? Do you have problems there? Okay, 2 more issues. One, clearly Action SA is against triple BEE.
We're not against it. That policy, you know, the other day I had an interview with JJ Tabani on this show, and he wanted me to discuss BEE, that BEE is a good policy. It's a good policy for what? When it's destroyed our country's economy. So I don't want to discuss that policy. Action SA, given the mandate to be government, we are going to bury that policy as quickly as possible. If we have the mandate, we'll bury it in an unmarked grave.
Would you not say, if I can interject, would you not say that the policy didn't work because it wasn't because of the policy in itself, it was because of the custodians, that it favored the elite, and there were people that were able to use that policy to, get connections, the politically elite. In principle, would you not say it's a good policy in terms of giving?
It's not a good policy. A good policy is a policy that creates a prosperity for a nation, and so a good policy. It's a policy that Action SA adopted at our policy conference called Inclusive Economic Empowerment, where we are saying is black people were discriminated against during apartheid. There's no one who can question that. Black people were discriminated against during ANC's government. ANC produced oligarchs. So we're saying is no, we are not going to try apartheid-based legislation to address this issue. They're the ones who created black people not to really have the means and the education. ANC policies have destroyed our economy. So what we are saying is we want redress. That one is not negotiable.
Okay.
It's not negotiable.
How?
We do it through businesses contributing, every business contributing to an opportunity fund.
Okay.
Over and above the normal taxes that they pay. You contribute, at the moment, roughly 6%. We'll finalize the actual percentage. 6% of your annual profit. Your lawyer, between you and your lawyers, every year, you would contribute to this fund.
Okay.
This fund will be run by professional people. We want accountants, engineers, and so forth.
In government?
And then, no.
Not in
government. Not in government.
Okay.
This opportunity fund will be run by professional people who will account to Parliament. Because every year, whatever billions that they get from businesses contributing to this money will be used exclusively in black communities.
Something similar to, what's this fund that was set up for COVID?
Something along those lines.
But that thing didn't really work out well. Do you think it worked out well or not?
Well, who was run? Show me anything that was run by the ANC that has ever worked. Tell me anything.
So what you're saying is that
tell me anything that
your policy would work under an Action SA government.
Yeah,
you can't do that
because
now under an ANC government.
No, ANC. Look, one thing you must understand with ANC, I'm sure I don't have to really give you proof. Every South African, black and white, can tell you, ANC. Every time there's a crisis, that's when they see an opportunity to steal. So that is why for us as Section SA, we are saying this fund is not going to be run by government.
Yes.
It must be run independently, and they must account to Parliament on an annual basis.
And what's the purpose of the fund?
The fund is to ensure that you can build schools.
All
because
right.
we don't have schools in the townships and the villages. Go and build clinics.
Okay.
Go and build infrastructure. Fund black businesses, entrepreneurs in the communities at favorable rates or no interest rates whatsoever. So go and fund businesses so that we can have our people getting funding better than what the banks can offer. Make sure that you can take some of our kids to some of the good universities all over the world to learn certain skills, because we've got an emergency to make sure that we empower our kids. We need engineers. We need the best. We need the best accountants. We must build universities. We must build teachers training colleges. We must build boarding schools where ANC over the last 29 years have disrupted big time black family units. So we need to build family units. But unfortunately, because the kids are already there, what we need to do, we need to take them out of this toxic environment, put them into boarding schools where there are the best teachers. We pay the best teachers. We've got psychologists. We put up the best sporting facilities, be soccer, rugby, swimming pools, and so forth. These schools exclusively for kids coming from this kind of environment.
Yeah.
That's how you will build a nation, not build oligarchs. Oligarchs, become a businessman, put your money where your mouth is, run your business. And this system, our economic policy, we've even put in a time limit to it, 30 years. We're running. It took ANC 30 years to destroy our economy. So we said in 30 years, then we know by that time we would have achieved and produced enough blacks actually to run this country in a professional manner.
Unfortunately, I've got so many questions that I wanted to ask you, but I think we've got very, very limited time. So one last thing, just on your leadership journey, on a lighter note, on your leadership journey, on Herman Mashaba as a person now, not a politician, because you have a vast amount of experience in leading people, vast amount of experience in building things. I think one of the things that South Africans love about you, and what I love about you, is that you've built something. So because you've built something, there's a reputation. You're not like someone who's a politician who's coming into politics who hasn't built anything, who doesn't know how things are built from grind up. What's your leadership philosophy? What are some of your habits? What are some of your daily routines? I saw a picture of you which was the very first picture I saw on Twitter. You were out with your wife and you were reading a book and you were out in a wilderness, in a, what is it, a resort somewhere last year sometime or something like that.
I must have been in Masai Mara or something, the last...
but you were on holiday. That looked really nice.
Yeah, I took a holiday. My wife and I had a privilege to travel the world. We've traveled almost half of this world over the last 40 years. We just got back just over a week ago from the 4th until I think... last Tuesday, we spent 9 days in Cambodia. No, Cambodia we spent 3 days, and then we spent 9 days in South Korea. We went last year. What's this place? I forget.
Yeah.
No.
But what's your leadership? What's your leadership philosophy? What's your some of your secrets on how you keep that work-life balance?
Well, I think I've been fortunate by God giving me the wisdom to stabilize my life. You know, I grew up in an environment as a young boy, very naughty, like all the boys. So there was no father in my house. My father died when I was 2. So you become naughty, like boys in our villages and townships. We like girls. And I realized that at that early stage that, you know, I must stabilize my life. I got married on the 3rd of March. I'll be married for 42 years.
Congratulations.
You know, I got married at the age of 2. So that, I think...
At the age of 2?
Married at 22.
Oh, 22. Okay.
22. I got married at the age of 22. That really helped to stabilize my life. And I'm really grateful for having the wisdom to have taken that decision. That's one thing.
So that's part of your leadership. So are you saying in terms of your leadership, family is a huge part of how you do things? So you value family, okay?
I value family. I value hard work. Hard work pays.
Okay.
Hard work, I can tell you, hard work pays. Ask Gary Player once said this many times. He says, the harder he practices, the luckier he gets. You know, hard work pays, and I'm a living example of that. When I was when I started Black Like Me or was working as a trader, used to do plus minus 10,000 kilometers every month. My car had to be serviced every month. So I worked hard to my business success didn't happen by chance. Yep. I worked damn hard on numbers. And I actually believe in myself. Every decision I take, it's a decision that I take personal responsibility. Yeah. Whether it end up being successful or not. And I'm not risk averse. I'm not scared of taking risks.
That's great.
I think because I've strongly believe the only way I will know that I failed is after having tried. And I've had many things that I've done in my life, and I've succeeded by taking chances. Yes, I've had a few where I failed. You know, as you can imagine, when you start a company during the dark days of this country with the 30,000 rands, with state of emergency, you've learned to duck and dive from the police. You know, approaching a white guy in 1984 to join me as a partner, because I was a trader. I used to sell hair care products for someone else. So, and I decided, no, man, I must make this stuff myself. But I don't have a chemist background. I didn't know any black person who can make the stuff. I approached an Afrikaner guy who was a chemist. Yep. You know, say, Johan, you can make the stuff. Joseph and we can sell. And, you know, you can imagine if this guy had
turned you down,
turned us down and reported us to Leon Thompson would have fired us. And would have lost 3,500-4,000 rands a month at the time, which was a lot of money, you know. You know, I took a chance and paid off. A lot of people have been too scared to try. When DA approached me in 2015 to be their mayoral candidate, are you aware I had no clue what the mayor does? I had no clue whatever. But because I see, I'm a strong believer that if I see most people being able to do something,
why can't you?
Why can't I? You know, I bought a car brand new. Toyota Corolla paid 6,800. It was very expensive. I mean, it was unheard of, in our community. Buy brand new. I had not driven a car before in my life. I only had a learner's license because I was
And
playing.
you went and bought.
We went and bought, and these guys allowed me to take. They didn't know that I don't have a driver's license. So, in Lodium, and then I lived in Amanskara. And living in Lodium, went to Carby Motors in Lodium. It was the biggest Toyota dealer. And Toyota had just introduced those Toyota Corollas. If you look in my books, it is the blue one.
Yeah, I saw that picture.
Yeah, no,
I saw that picture.
And I was happening, and brand new, and I had a bump before I got home. When I left in the morning with my wife, in fact, even honestly with me out, the intention wasn't when buy the car. It was just to went to window shopping to prepare because I was going to, But then when I got there, because I had there was this car that I liked, and they asked, they told me what deposit I need, and then there was the bank financing bank. Then half an hour, the bank approved my financing. And all of us, and the guy says, no, we've got the car, you can have it. My goodness. My wife honestly got a fright of her life.
Yeah.
And he says, no. So I asked them if they had their cars in the garage. So I said, no, bring it up outside. I drove it to Amanskara. And I think a month or so, 2 months later, I got a driver's license. I did not take it to work. It was on a Saturday. Got home, a cousin of mine who was working for a bus company took me for lessons. And Sunday, we continued. Monday, was working in Kudusport, still use public transport. From Tuesday, I took it to town. I drove. And then I think about 2 months later, then I applied for a driver's license. And I got it the first time because I couldn't really drive. And look at my track record of running the city of Johannesburg. There's a reason why when I resigned, people asked me to start a political party. I did not know how to start a political party. Here is it. Started a political party that actually has given South African hope. I've achieved electoral support that not even ANC under Mandela received. Not in terms of numbers, in terms of a political party getting electoral support across all racial base.
Sure.
For the first time in the history of South Africa, of the democratic South Africa, we got 22% of Soweto votes. ANC Soweto used to be the playground. We dropped the ANC from 76% to 59% of Soweto, from Soweto. We got to 22%, followed by the EFF 10-year-old party filling up stadiums. They are 14%. We had 22%.
Yeah.
And actually right now, if I look, we've participated already in 2 by-elections. So, I don't know anything about starting a political party.
Got you.
If I put my mind into doing something, and I believe that
it's
other people have
achievable,
done
you can do it. Yeah.
And that is why I'm confident that Action SA has to be in government, because I'm not in this job because I'm looking for a job to be an MP and be in opposition. What can I do as an opposition? No, we want to govern. And I know the only way we can govern as Action SA, it means I've got to go out there in Mamakanda, I've got to be here in the Eastern Cape, go out house to house, go into public meetings, have contact with people to really get their mandate. It's not something that's going to happen by chance. And I do this throughout the country as I'm talking to you. Our teams all over the country, branches are being opened. So far, we've got roughly 40% of the country's wards. They've got branches. And our target is to ensure that by the time we go to elections in May, we've got a minimum of 60% of the branches open in the country. There's only way we can win elections. We're not going to win elections by going to church and pray.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Prayer is very important for God to give us the wisdom. But We've got to put in.
You win elections on the ground.
Sure.
Data, thank you for your time. Thank you for sitting down with us. This has been amazing. The time just flew by so quickly. Just give me one word of what you think. I just want to know, what do you think of these following people, writers people? What do you think of Mmusi Maimane? 1 or 2 words.
Mmusi Maimane, a good spokesperson.
Good spokesperson. John Steenhuisen?
John Steenhuisen, it's a politician.
Julius Malema?
Julius Malema, very dangerous person in terms of his economic policies.
Very dangerous.
Yeah,
okay.
no, I think very dangerous economic policies,
which
will never work anywhere in the world.
Songezo Zibi?
Song is, I think, I don't know. Do you know him?
It's a GLC podcast, sitting down with Herman Mashaba. Until we see you guys again, thank you so much.